I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around and since it is cold and empty, no one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep right until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Hit the road in overdrive. The city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. But whenever I let you go, this time I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep right until I feel your touch. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Two Tone by God Pod. And it is Monday, Victory Monday. Hey, hey, hey. Woo! The Tennessee Titans defeated the Carolina Panthers yesterday, 17-10. Titans improved to 4-7 on the season. I don't want to be so, I don't want to just scoff at the win, because any win in the NFL is a good one. I know that. You never take a win for granted, but the Titans won yesterday. And in winning that game yesterday, there are some things that we need to acknowledge. The first is that the Carolina Panthers are horrible. The Carolina Panthers are horrible. In fact, well, it's a toss-up. It is a toss-up between them and the Patriots, I think,
as to who the worst team in the league really is. It's one of those two. Panthers or Patriots. The Panthers, though, are atrocious. So much so that they fired their head coach, Frank Reich, this morning. He didn't even get a full season. And they already fired him. I have friends who know people in Charlotte who say it's total devastation right now. Seeing C.J. Stroud tearing it up in Houston, seeing Will Levis doing well in Nashville, seeing some of these other quarterbacks, and then meanwhile they gave up everything for Bryce Young. And though I don't think it's all his fault, it ain't looking good so far. The Carolina Panthers are awful. The Tennessee Titans beat a horrible team yesterday. Now, the Titans themselves, the winning team, didn't really look too good themselves. I mean, honestly, I am not going to sit here and pretend that this offensive performance by the Titans was any better than what we have seen. Because they only scored 17 points, and 7 of them were gifted to them by Jeffrey Simmons recovering a fumble inside the 20. So you scored 17 points, and 7 of those were given to you by the defense. This was not a good performance by the Titans, especially in the second half. I think even defensively, you can say, hey, it's a good defensive performance. You only held them to 10 points. You know, got a turnover. Yeah, let me tell you something. Yeah, the defense was better than the offense overall, but they still got bailed out by Carolina committing penalties on, you know, they'd have a drive going and then they'd have a holding call that totally ruined their drive. Sometimes they would have Bryce Young missing an open receiver. I mean, they had some of that stuff. They kind of helped the Titans out. Bad play calls. I mean, 4th and 6 with the game on the line and you throw a wide receiver screen. I mean, stuff like that kind of bailed this defense out a little bit. I still think the secondary is no good for Tennessee. Christian Fulton just holding like crazy. Pass interference like crazy. Murphy Bunting had one call on him. But, I mean, McCreary was better. Roger McCreary was better yesterday, being back in the slot. There's a bright side for you. But inside linebackers just having trouble. And yes, our defensive line had a great day. Jeffrey Simmons was having a great day. Arden Key had his best game of the season. Danico Autry had a big game. Harold Landry was doing some stuff. Yeah, because Carolina may be one of the only teams in the league with a worse offensive line than the Tennessee Titans. And it's because, in so many cases, like us, they're down to 3rd and 4th string offensive linemen. So all of that to say, defensively, there were some things that the Carolina Panthers helped Tennessee's defense out yesterday. They made the job a little easier for them with penalties, bad play calls, Bryce Young missing throws. Like, this was not as good of a defensive performance from Tennessee as it would appear. Now, the defensive line, yes, the defensive line was great for Tennessee yesterday, but keep in mind, they're going against one of the worst O-lines in the league. Carolina, one of the only O-lines worse than Tennessee's. Now, offensively, I thought it was Will Levis' worst performance so far. Still did some good things, but in the second half especially. See, the first half I thought it was good. First half, I thought he did some good stuff. I was feeling good about him at halftime, but I thought the second half was the worst that he has played since he took the job. Missed Hopkins on that crossing route. He was open for a big play, and Levis threw it behind him. And then on the next third down, he had Hopkins streaking down the field for a touchdown, and he just didn't throw it to him. He tried to throw it to, and honestly, where he threw the ball, it looked like both Kyle Phillips and Chris Moore were both open, and he missed them both. So there were some throws yesterday that I am confident Will Levis is going to watch back and wish he could have those throws back, because he missed some opportunities. And I thought, against Tampa Bay, he didn't have a good game against Tampa Bay, but I chalked that up to just everybody was awful against Tampa Bay. The offensive line had their worst game of the season against Tampa Bay, and think about the ground that covers. So, but this one, I actually felt like the protection was somewhat better yesterday. Wasn't great. Was still not good, but like maybe I was comparing it to Carolina's offensive line, but I thought the protection for Tennessee was a little better. It was better enough that there were times Levis had time to work through his reads, find the open guy, and he either didn't throw it or he threw it behind him. Can't happen. It cannot happen. And I know it's only like his fifth start. He's a rookie. There are growing pains. I know. I am fully aware. I'm just saying that is stuff that is going to have to be corrected as we continue to go forward. Gonna have to be corrected. You cannot miss wide open receivers running down the field. You cannot throw it behind wide open receivers. Can't do it. So I thought that second half was the worst that Will Levis has played, because I actually thought he had time in that second half to really make some stuff happen, and he didn't. Offensive line wise, we had Jalen Duncan in there at left tackle. He got beat a few times, and I think that that's to be expected. He's a rookie too in his first NFL start, but I thought he held up okay. I don't know if he held up so okay that you would just feel good about going with him in the future. I don't know about that. I think he's better than Andre Dillard. Yeah, I think he has done better than Andre Dillard. I think he has earned the right to start there for the rest of this season. Next season, it's going to depend on what he shows you down the stretch. But as of right now, I'm still thinking they got to go left tackle in the draft. I still think Aaron Brewer at center mostly leaves some things to be desired. I thought Dylan Radins at right tackle was okay. I thought he was okay. I don't think he was any worse than Nicholas Petit-Frere. I don't think he was any worse than him. Maybe not quite as good as Hubbard, but maybe just as good. Over the coming days, we'll see some of the film breakdown on Twitter, but I thought the offensive line was a little better, but still, it's got to be even better. It's just, there were still times where it was just so unacceptable, it was ridiculous. Derrick Henry had a couple touchdowns. He broke loose a couple times on some decent runs. Pretty strong performance for him. But defensively, especially, the Titans continue to be a very undisciplined team. They're committing penalties. They're holding a lot. It's a lot of Christian Fulton holding. But there are other instances, but it feels like it's mostly him. It feels like when they call holding, it's usually on Fulton. But yeah, there are just some penalties that are backbreakers and not very characteristic of a Mike Vrabel team. It's not very. It's not something you would expect. Usually, Vrabel has a pretty disciplined team, if they're nothing else. This defense, especially, continues to be very undisciplined, and so. And I have not totally ruled out the idea that Tennessee could go corner in the first round of the draft. By the way, if you want to know, the downside of winning games when you have a team like the Titans went into yesterday with the number 6 pick in the draft, After yesterday, they now have the number 10 pick in the draft. So that's just the way the cookie crumbles. But I have not ruled out the idea that the Titans could go corner in the first round. I mean, I don't know, because obviously they're going to be, I assume Christian Fulton will not be back. I don't know if Sean Murphy Bunting will be back. We also need a safety, unless they just want to put Mold in there, but I don't know about that. But yeah, I thought the Titans looked bad. I think they would have lost to most teams yesterday. But thankfully for them, they were playing one of the only teams in the NFL worse than they are. And it worked out for them, and they remain unbeaten at home. And they have a lot of home games on this final stretch of the season, which brings me to an interesting point. The Titans are 4-7, and there are people asking the question, could Titans make a run? Much like Jacksonville did last year. To put it in perspective how much the Titans fell apart last season, at one point the Titans were 7-3 and the Jaguars were 3-7 last year, okay? At one point, actually, I think the Jags actually were 4-8. And the Titans fell apart to such a degree that the Jags came back and beat them in the division by 2 games. Just unbelievable. So, a lot of people are asking, could the Titans do what Jacksonville did last year? First of all, in terms of Tennessee and the way they're playing, no. Like, you look at the rest of their schedule, every team they have for the rest of this season has a winning record. Colts, 6-5. Then they got to play Miami, 8-3. Houston, twice. They're 6-5. Seattle, I think they're 6-5. And Jacksonville, 8-3. So you have no easy games left. The easiest game you have left is this week against the Colts. That's probably your easiest game remaining on the schedule. Depends on who you think's worse, Seattle or Indianapolis. I would say Seattle would probably beat Indianapolis head-to-head, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. So, I personally think, like, for the Titans, if they had looked awesome yesterday, if they had beaten the Panthers by 40, then maybe I'd be willing to sit here and have a conversation about could they go on a run. But the way this team has looked the last 3 weeks, I mean, did they really look that different yesterday than they did against Tampa Bay and Jacksonville the 2 previous weeks when they just looked atrocious? Did they look any different against Carolina yesterday? No. They looked just as bad. Honestly, the only thing that was better was the defensive line because they were going against Carolina's third-string offensive line. That's the only thing that was better, was the defensive line. Other than that, this was the same old stuff we've been seeing. They just happened to be playing a worse team. And so they ended up winning. So I see no reason to pick them in any of their remaining games. I see no reason. There is nothing good really happening still. And while yesterday was a win, I don't see the Titans making any late season run. Because honestly, for them to make the playoffs, I feel like they would have to win out. I don't think 9-8 is going to get you in the playoffs. First of all, let me say this. The division, let's just sort this out. Let's lay the cards out on the table. The division's already a wash. Okay? The Titans are 4 games behind Jacksonville. There's only 6 games left. So if you wanted, in some fantasy world, if the Titans magically just randomly started playing better and just started running the table, if you want that season finale against Jacksonville in Nashville, if you were to say, what would have to happen for that game to be for the division? The Jaguars would have to lose 3 of their next 5 games. The Jaguars would have to lose 3 of their next 5 games for the Titans-Jaguars game at the end. This is assuming the Titans win. This is assuming the Titans beat Indianapolis and then go on the road to Miami and then come back and beat Houston and then beat Seattle and then go on the road and beat Houston again. Assuming they do all that, which is quite the assumption. That is quite the assumption. But let's say they did that. You would also need Jacksonville to lose 3 of their next 5 games. And you know what? Until a couple weeks ago, that was not too far-fetched, because if you've looked at the schedule, Jacksonville's next 3 games, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Baltimore. That's their next 3 games. And a few weeks ago, I looked at that and I said, man, Jacksonville could have some losses here. Jacksonville could have some losses start piling up. Well, now it's the Bengals without Burrow. Don't think they're losing to the Bengals without Burrow. It's the Browns without Watson. Now, I do think the Browns will give them a little trouble, because of their defense. But ultimately, with P.J. Walker or whoever the Browns are going to have in there, I feel like the Jags will probably win. And then they still got to play Baltimore. But even if they lose to Baltimore, after that they play the Bucs and the Panthers. So you would need them. You would need the Titans to run the table. And you would need the Jags to lose 3 of their next 5 games for that last game in Nashville to be for the AFC South. It ain't happening. Now, a much more realistic goal to talk about, if you're in fantasy world, let's just say we're in fantasy world. We're laying the cards out on the table. Let's just have the conversation. Let's say the Titans get hot and they start winning. The much more realistic goal would be that they could get in the hunt for the 7 seed in the playoffs and be a wild card team. That's a more realistic thing to talk about, because right now, as unbelievable as it is, the Titans are 2 games out of a wild card spot. Okay, they're 2 games behind a wild card spot, and guess who one of those teams are that are in front of them? The Indianapolis Colts, who are coming to town this week. Okay, so now you could cut that to 1 game. You've got other teams in front of you, like Buffalo, who has a brutal schedule ahead of them. You've got Denver, who looks really dang good. You've got Houston, who is Houston, and a lot of people like them, but you still got to play them twice, so you can make the argument, hey, if we can beat them twice, then, whatever. And then I think the other team is, the Raiders are like a half game ahead of us. So if the Titans got hot, could you theoretically, get to 10-7, 9-8, and grab a 7 seed? That's more realistic. That's a heck of a lot more realistic than coming back and winning the division. That's not happening. But could you grab a wild card spot if the right chips fall into place? Maybe. It's if you got hot, which I don't think the Titans are going to, but if you got hot, build off of that great win yesterday, theoretically, yeah, you're 2 games back from a wild card. You could knock off 1 from the Colts this week, and then you start talking about it. But I don't. Isabella says wild card playoffs. Is this a serious conversation? Delusional. Listen, Isabella. I said if you're living in fantasy world, and are trying to find, I'm not going to blame people for trying to have hope, because you know what? I see a lot of people who are talking about the fact that there are some people who want the Titans to lose so that they can have a higher draft pick. And I wrestle with that every day. There are some days where I wake up and I'm like, man, we just need to lose out. Try and get up there in that top 5 and get one of those tackles. Like, I wrestle with it every day. But, there are a lot of fans who just simply say, I can't do it. I can't do that. I can't tune in and root for my team to lose because of a draft that's happening in April. I can't do it. I want them to win, and I want them to get hot, and I want to believe that something could happen. And you know what? Respect to those people, man. Respect to them. You know, let people like Titan South in the chat who are saying, 9 and 8, 7 seeds possible. Hey, you know what? I'm not going to blame anybody for just trying to find a little hope. Gust Hemming says, love the show. Jags fan here. Uh-oh. Gust Hemming, how did you hear about the Two Tone Talk podcast? That's what I want to know. Over in Jacksonville, how did you hear about or learn about this here podcast? Anyway, it's a much more, stranger things have happened than being 2 games back. And honestly, looking at the AFC wild card, I think the Steelers and the Browns are both a lock to take the 2 of those spots, because I looked at both of their schedules last night just to see, and I don't think the Steelers are good. I think they are the worst looking 7-4 team I've ever seen, but they've got a really easy schedule, and the Browns, they both will probably lose a couple more games, but for one of them not to make the playoffs, I think they would have to really fall apart. I think those 2 teams, the Steelers and the Browns, they are primed to get wild card spots. Gus Hemming says, learned about the podcast by searching YouTube, plus how you're feeling right now has been the history of the Jaguars. It is funny to me, Gus Hemming, that the Titans and the Jaguars, obviously rivals, don't like each other. But the ironic thing is the Titans and the Jaguars have a lot of things in common. Like, very similar franchises. Titan South talking about Tim Kelly's play calling in the second half. Said it led to Levis struggling. Yeah, some of that, yeah. I think there were some play calls that I wasn't totally a fan of. Bruce, who is a massive Colts fan, says the clean sweep is coming. But yeah, you've just got a host of 6-5 teams. Colts, Texans, Broncos, those teams are all 6-5. Denver's going to be tough. Denver looks great. They're one of the hottest teams out there right now. Then you've got the Bills at 6-6. Then I think you've got the Raiders and Bengals at 5-7, and then you've got Tennessee. And so, if you're looking for hope, and I'm not going to blame you, there's nothing wrong with trying to find hope. It is much more realistic to try to look at one of those wild card spots than it is to look to coming back and overtaking Jacksonville. That's not happening. But, stranger things have happened than being 2 games back from a wild card at this point. But for all of that to happen, the Titans are going to have to morph into... you guys remember watching The Incredible Hulk when he would just be like the ordinary guy that then just morphed into this monster? Like, you're going to have something like that. You're going to have the Titans morph into something unforeseen. You're going to have them morph into a team that can cover a heck of a lot better than they do, is much more disciplined than they already are, that, has much better blocking. Like, you're going to have to just have, like, something similar to, Jesus feeding the 5,000 with, the fish and the bread. You're going to need something like that for these Titans to get hot and make a run. I don't see it. I don't see a roster that's getting ready to do anything. You could talk me into them beating the Colts. Maybe at home in Nashville. You could talk me into them beating the Colts. But on the road at Miami on Monday Night Football, I just can't imagine. I think this secondary against C.J. Stroud twice, yikes. And I'm just thinking about Titans Dolphins in Miami. I can just see the flags being thrown for Christian Fulton holding Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. Like, just not something I'm looking forward to. But I guess you take it one game at a time. Indianapolis is next. One last thing I'll say about yesterday. If anybody is happy that this game ended in a win, it is Mike Vrabel. Because I think the only thing that would have truly put his job in danger would have been if they had lost to the Carolina Panthers at home. If they had lost to the Carolina Panthers at home, then I think his seat would have been the hottest that it could possibly be at this point. Because I don't know if you guys have seen the reports. Diana Rossini have been putting out, but like, Vrabel's not going anywhere. There's some people who have rumors of him going to the Patriots, and according to Diana Rossini, that's not happening. There are some people who think Vrabel might go coach Ohio State. And Diana Rossini said it ain't happening. He's staying in Nashville. He's the guy the Titans want. He wants to be there. And so I think the only thing that would have changed that would have been if they had lost to Carolina at home. Then I think it would have been like, okay, that's next level. But since they won, his job security is probably just fine. Just fine. Now, I posted this on the Two-Tone Twitter yesterday, and if you haven't, go follow me over there, at Two-Tone_podcast. Ran Carthon has got his work cut out for him this offseason. Offensively, watching that game yesterday, I said, okay, here are the needs for the Titans just offensively this offseason. Need a left tackle. Need a center. Need a right tackle. You may need a right guard. Now, ultimately, I don't think you're going to be able to go out and get all four of those. I think they're going to have somebody that's already there step up and be a starter next year, other than Skoronski. They're going to have Jalen Duncan or Dylan Radins, somebody that's already on the roster. Nicholas Petit-Frere is going to have to step up and be a starter. Okay? But I think you can get a couple of those. You can probably get a new left tackle, a new center, and then maybe Brunskill comes back and plays right guard, and then you stick either Radins or Petit-Frere or Duncan at right tackle. But you're going to have to fill at least 2 spots on that offensive line through the draft, free agency, trades. Okay, that's a need. Tight end, I listed that as a need yesterday, but honestly, your best bet at tight end, you got 2 guys in Chig Okonkwo and Josh Wiley. Those 2 guys are just going to have to step up. Like, Okonkwo had a better game yesterday. Those 2 guys are going to have to step up. They're just going to have to. Like, instead of going out, you can't just go out and draft new guys for that position every year. You've got to tell those 2 guys, you guys need to step up and be our tight ends. So, I'm going to take that off the list. Instead of going out and getting new tight ends, you need to tell those 2 guys to step it up a little bit. Wide receivers in need. We've talked about it till we're two-tone blue in the face. Okay, Hawkins will be back. Kyle Phillips will be back. Technically, Traylon Burks will be back, but I still think it's possible he gets traded. Chris Moore, Westbrook-Akine, they're both free agents at the end of the year. I want one of these free agent wide receivers. I want, I think second round you can get good value for a wide receiver there. The guy from Oregon looks good, and he's projected to go second round. So that's a need, though. Running back. I mean, if Derrick Henry leaves, which I fully expect, I don't think Tyjae Spears is going to be an every down back. You're going to need somebody else that can play. Hassan Haskins is completely fallen off the face of the earth, so I don't know if you hit up, free agency to try and get a running back that can come in and trade off snaps with him, or later round draft pick of somebody. But if Derrick Henry is not on this team anymore, running back is going to be a need. Somebody that's going to trade off snaps with Spears. And then we haven't even got a defense yet. You need a corner, maybe two. You need a safety. You need inside linebackers galore. You could always use help on the edge. If Danico Autry and Tier Tart, I mean, I would love to re-sign Tier Tart. Danico Autry was great yesterday, and I still think if he were willing to come back on a team-friendly deal, I'd love to have him, but I don't think I think he's going to go where the money is. Who can blame him? Bruce says I don't see D-Hop sticking around. He has no choice. He's on a 2-year contract. So he's got another year of his contract left. And honestly, for whatever reason, I have no idea why, DeAndre Hopkins seems very happy in Nashville. And I don't know why. I think DeAndre Hopkins is one of those guys. I don't know if he just smokes a lot of weed or something. But, he is just happy and content no matter what's going on. This guy is always, chill, smiling, having a good time. I don't know. This guy's just happy to be there, wherever he is. And like I said, I don't know if he just smokes a bunch of weed or what's going on, but he actually seems content. And I don't know why, but he seems like he'd be happy to be back. So we'll see, though. 2474 says, I'm ready for next year. I don't see us making the playoffs or anything. And to be honest, I'd rather just skip to the postseason. I mean, I don't see the Titans. We talked all of that earlier about what would have to happen for the Titans to grab a wild card spot. What if they could get hot? What if... My gut feeling is these Titans and the way they've looked the last 3 weeks would be lucky to win another game. I mean, with the way the rest of the schedule is, the teams they've got to play, I just can't imagine them beating Miami in Miami. I just can't imagine them beating Houston either time they play them. I just can't imagine them beating Jacksonville in the last game of the season. They might squeak out one more win, but anything more than 6 wins is just not in the cards to me. And yesterday, in spite of winning the game, did nothing to change that for me. It's just that was 2 bad teams playing each other, and Carolina outbatted the Titans. Carolina outworst the Titans. And that was all that happened yesterday. 2 bad teams played each other, and at the end of the day, one of them was a little worse than the other. Same thing happened with the Patriots and the Giants. It was almost identical. 2 bad teams played each other, and one of them ended up being a little worse than the other. With that being said, I think Carolina, to me, is a lock for the first pick in the draft, so that actually means the Bears are going to be the first pick in the draft, and I think they're going to take Marvin Harrison, and I think they're probably going to have the 4th or 5th pick in the draft just because of their own pick, and I think they're going to take one of those offensive tackles with that pick. I think the Patriots will probably be number 2, and I think they'll take Caleb Williams. Arizona, they'll be up there. It'll be interesting to see what they do, because will they bring back Kyler Murray, or will they go with Drake May or one of these other quarterbacks? The Giants are now ahead of us. The Commanders are ahead of us. The Bucks are ahead of us. So, the draft order is going to change every week. Ashton says, do you think the Titans will beat the Colts since it's in Nashville? I think of all the games they have left, the Colts is the most winnable. I think of all the games the Titans have left, the Colts game is the most winnable game left on the schedule. And maybe, at least if they did beat the Colts, number one, they would beat the Colts, and we all hate the Colts. But also, I saw somebody on Twitter, it was actually Sal, if you guys know Sal from Jersey. He gets a lot of attention on Titans Twitter. He said yesterday, and I actually liked the way he put it. He said, if you guys just beat the Colts, it'll at least give me a reason to get out of bed for Titans Dolphins on Monday Night Football the next week. And that's essentially what it would do. If you beat the Colts, get to 5-7, get to, one game back from a wild card spot, then yeah, it would essentially give me reason to care about that Monday night game before you essentially go out and lose by 50. Isabella says, just watch the Colts play. Yeah, I mean, the Colts are better than I thought they were. I think the Colts are a middle-of-the-pack team. But I think middle of the pack is enough to beat Tennessee. As we saw with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a middle-of-the-pack team, and they beat the Titans soundly. So, there you go. I mean, the game yesterday was ugly. It was boring. It was awful. And now, but you won, and so for the moment, there are going to be some fans who use it as an opportunity to get a little hope going, and there are going to be some who see it as even more reason to throw this team off the cliff. Let's talk about some of the other games yesterday. Steelers over the Bengals. I didn't say we can. Listen, Isabella. Isabella's coming in feisty, okay, in the chat. I didn't say we can beat the Colts. I said it was the most winnable game left. Meaning, if you told me the Titans are going to win one more game this year, I would say probably the Colts game. Because it's at home, and the Colts, while better than I thought they would be, are not as good as Miami. They are not as good as Houston. They are not as good as Seattle. They are not as good as Jacksonville. That's all I was saying. It is the most winnable game they have left. Steelers beat the Bengals yesterday. Like I said, the Steelers, I have no idea how they're 7-4. They look horrible. They got players on the team like Deontay Johnson, who literally looks like he would rather retire than play. Pathetic effort, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen that play from that game yesterday. Like, where the Bengals picked up the fumble and he just stood there. I'm telling you what, dude. I wouldn't be shocked if Mike Tomlin sets that dude on the bench. That is pathetic. But the Steelers won. They're 7-4. And here's the thing. Like, we keep waiting for the Steelers to go off a cliff. But, like, there's only 6 games left. You want to know who their next 2 games are against? The Cardinals and the Patriots. They're going to win both of them. They're going to be 9-4. Then they play the Colts. Toss-up. Then they play the Bengals without Burrow again. Probably beat them. Seahawks. Probably going to lose that game in Seattle. Then they got the Ravens. So they'll probably lose their last 2. And they'll probably win the rest. That's why I said they're a lock for the playoffs. And real quickly, can I just say this? Because I thought about this. First of all, Save Crystal Gaming is in the chat. Says, I can't believe we're going to wear the throwbacks and lose to Houston in them. Also, the Monday Night War song is a bop. Thank you very much. Gregory Walker says, love your show. I watch all of them. Thank you very much, Gregory. Isabella says, sorry, I'm just so drained and wore out from watching this team. Understandable. I do want to say this, though. Think about all the lengths that the NFL has gone to protect quarterbacks. Like, I told somebody yesterday, if I was a defender, I wouldn't even want to even attempt sacking the quarterback. Because, like, it's just like they pick and choose when they want to throw the flag and be like, oh, that's targeting, roughing the passer. A little too much there. And so we're doing all this ridiculous stuff to protect the quarterback. Okay, great. So we're doing all this stuff to protect the quarterback. Yet, Joe Burrow, done for the year. Kirk Cousins, done for the year. Deshaun Watson, done for the year. Anthony Richardson, done for the year. 4 premier starting quarterbacks gone. Aaron Rodgers, done for the year. Been done for the, well, maybe done for the year. He said he's going to come back and play this season. Why? The Jets are horrible. Let me think here, because there's some others. There's some other starting quarterbacks who have been hurt. Either done for the year or you know, missed a lot of time. Because I feel like they're all over the place. Ryan Tannehill. I mean, lest we forget, Ryan Tannehill didn't get hurt. He didn't get benched. He got hurt. Daniel Jones, Brandon Moore says. Daniel Jones, done for the year. Like, so we're taking all these steps to protect quarterbacks. It ain't even working. Jimmy Garoppolo, there's another one. It's ridiculous. Jags beat the Texans 24-21. This is a great game. Texans missed the 58-yard field goal, would have tied it. This pretty much, to me, solidified the Jags. I mean, this is their division. This 2023 Jags team is not going to fall apart like last year's Titans team did. They might lose a game or two the rest of the way, maybe. But ultimately, you're looking at a 12-5 team, at worst. And as bad as I'd say it, I mean, the Jags appear to be getting hot at the right time. A lot of people didn't think they were going to win that game yesterday in Houston against a red-hot team. This was a signature win for the Jaguars. Colts beat the Bucks. I can't believe the Bucks. I can't believe the Bucks have even won 4 games. Because, all around, they just look bad. But the Colts, I'll give it to them, man. I mean, they're with a backup quarterback, which makes me wonder if Gardner Minshew has earned a starting job somewhere next year. Because there's always those teams who just are looking for somebody to fill the void for a year or two. Makes me wonder if Gardner Minshew might have gotten a starting job somewhere next year. Colts beat the Bucks 27-20. They're 6-5. Falcons win a big one over the Saints 24-15. The Falcons are now back in first place. This was a must-win for Arthur Smith. I mean, with the way things were going, how long can you defend how the train was coming off the tracks there? Bruce brought up another quarterback who got hurt, Justin Fields, who missed a ton of time, just came back last week. But the Falcons beat the Saints 24-15, must-win situation, and the Falcons, with a losing record, are now in first place. Every year's got to have that one division where whoever's leading it still has a losing record. The NFC South is that division. Giants, if there's any game yesterday that was more boring than the Panthers and the Titans, it was the Patriots and the Giants. Giants beat the Patriots 10-7, and I believe the legendary coach Bill Belichick is on borrowed time. I believe time is almost up for him in New England. I do believe he will probably go coach somewhere else. But the Patriots, do the Patriots and Panthers play each other? Let me go look at the schedule. Patriots do not play the Panthers. Have they played this year? No. But I'm telling you, the Patriots are horrible. The Giants are horrible too. But Giants have won 2 games in a row, though, with Tommy DeVito. Rams beat the Cardinals. Rams are getting hot, man. Rams look good, actually. Got a good win over Seattle last week. Come back and lay the wood to Arizona. And now the Rams are 1 game out of a wild card spot. I'd look out for the Rams, man. I mean, I'd give them a little more respect just because, I mean, look, they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And they still got some of those pieces there. Broncos beat the Browns 29-12. The Broncos, to me, I mean, they're the hottest team in the AFC right now, probably. It's not just that they're winning games, but it's that they're beating good teams. I mean, they beat the Chiefs really bad. Then they beat the Bills in Buffalo on Monday Night Football. Then they beat the red-hot Vikings. The Vikings, who were like on a roll with Dobbs, they beat them. And now they come in here and they beat Cleveland, who has one of the best defenses in football. Like, at least 3 out of 4 of those, if not all 4 of those, are playoff caliber teams. These are playoff caliber teams the Broncos are beating. And, you look at the rest of their schedule. The Broncos, they play the Texans, they play the Chargers, they play the Lions, play the Patriots, Chargers again, Raiders again. I mean, there's a lot of winnable games in there, So the Broncos, that's a scary wild card team waiting to happen right there. And honestly, I mean, they're what, 2 games behind the Chiefs in that division. So I mean, let's not eliminate that from the possibilities either. Chiefs beat the Raiders 31-17. At one point, the Raiders were winning this game 14-0. I was like, okay, and then all downhill from there. Chiefs were not about to lose to the Raiders after getting beat by Philly on Monday night. So the Chiefs did what they needed to do. The game of the day, and one of the best games of the year so far, the Eagles beat the Bills 37-34 in overtime. This was a tough one for the Bills. I mean, this was a game for Buffalo that, like, if you win this, you can have a belief that you can still be as good as you've been these last few years. You go on the road and beat Philadelphia, which they almost did, then you have a reason to come home and be like, okay, like, now we got this thing going. But to lose like that, man, it's just such a gut punch. Now you're 6-6 on the outside looking in of these AFC playoffs with a brutal schedule. They're still going to play Dallas and Kansas City and Miami. It is a brutal schedule that they've got the rest of the way. And you guys think McDermott may be on the hot seat there in Buffalo? Last night, the Ravens over the Chargers 20-10. Man, what a disappointment the Chargers are. I mean, a lot of people would have thought the Chargers would have been a potential wild card team, but they just look awful. They're 4-7. Ravens took care of business, and the Ravens remain one of the premier teams in the AFC. Tonight, it is the Bears and the Vikings. Woohoo! That's going to be great. Nothing like a little Josh Dobbs in prime time. Thank you guys for joining me on the Two Tone Talk podcast. I will be back Friday to preview Titans Colts. Let's go! Titans Colts. We'll talk about all the other games, do the 32-1 power rankings, and all of that good stuff. I will see you Friday. I appreciate everybody tuning in. This is the Two Tone Talk podcast, where we are staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Tighten up. Bye, everybody.
Feel free to be whoever you want to be. Feel free to dance. Feel free to sing. Just feel free. Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like it's picking on me. But trying to please everybody to get you to fit their